My house was still burning when she walked into my courtroom. There I sat, Judge Miriam Blackwood, black robes, gavel in hand, staring at the woman who just committed arson against a sitting judge. The sheer audacity made my blood boil. But Bryn Ashworth Sterling had no idea what she just walked into. When you torch a judge's home, you better pray she doesn't get the chance to return the favor legally. And honey, I was about to serve up justice with a side of federal prison time. This HOA Karen thought burning down my house would shut me up. Instead, it lit a fire that would consume her entire criminal empire. 6 months before my house became a crime scene, I was Judge Miriam Blackwood. Respected, feared by criminals, and completely shattered. I just buried Harold after watching cancer devour him piece by piece. 28 years of marriage gone. Our 1940s craftsman home in Pinewood Estates felt like a mausoleum filled with memories I couldn't let go. Pinewood used to be where blue-collar families raised kids and retired teachers tended flower gardens. Then the money moved in. McMansions replaced modest ranch homes, property taxes skyrocketed, and old-timers like Walt Henderson watched their neighborhood transform into something unrecognizable. Enter the queen bee of gentrification, Bryn Ashworth Sterling. Picture every entitled suburban nightmare you've ever encountered, then add designer athleisure and a god complex. 45 years old, driving a silver Tesla that cost more than most people's salary, always clutching some $20 superfood smoothie while explaining why everyone else was doing life wrong. She'd announced plans to elevate Pinewood to its full potential. Translation: get rid of the undesirables. My first encounter with Bryn happened while I was installing Harold's memorial fence. We'd planned this 6-foot privacy barrier together during his final months. Our sanctuary where we could watch sunrises without prying eyes. The sweet scent of his prize roses filled the air as I worked, 15 years of his careful tending still blooming. The crunch of expensive boots on leaves announced her arrival. You must be the widow. Not condolences, not introduction, just cold assessment. I corrected her. Judge Blackwood. She pronounced my title like it was a disease. I'm Bryn, HOA president. We have a problem. Out came the pink tape measure. She measured my fence with theatrical precision. 6 foot 2 inches. Our regulations clearly state 6 feet maximum. That's a $500 violation plus immediate removal costs. I stood slowly. Show me that regulation. 5 minutes of searching produced nothing because it didn't exist. My fence measured exactly 6 feet. I'd hired a licensed surveyor specifically to avoid this nonsense. Well, see about that, Judge, she huffed, venom dripping from every word. That evening I pulled up court records. 3 years ago, Sterling Premium Builders had appeared before my bench trying to scam an 80-year-old veteran out of $30,000 for emergency roof repairs. The roof was fine. I'd ruled against them hard, including referring them for contractor fraud investigation. This fence wasn't about regulations. It was revenge. But Bryn had made a critical error. She'd targeted a woman who'd spent 20 years sentencing murderers and con artists without flinching. Someone who'd watched her soulmate die while planning how to honor his memory. A person with absolutely nothing left to lose and complete understanding of how the legal system could be weaponized. Within 2 weeks, Bryn launched psychological warfare disguised as HOA enforcement. Certified letters started arriving like clockwork. 7 pieces of registered mail in 10 days, each more absurd than the last. Violation for Harold's memorial stone, allegedly creating visual discord. My black mailbox, standard issue since Reagan was president, suddenly violated uniform aesthetics. My bird feeder, where cardinals came each morning, was creating nuisance conditions. Each letter demanded fines between $200 and $500, threatening liens and legal action. Here's where 20 years on the bench paid off. These letters contained more legal holes than a mob lawyer's alibi. Real HOA fines must be reasonable, related to actual violations and properly documented in adopted bylaws. Bryn's notices cited non-existent regulations and failed to provide mandatory hearing procedures. Time for judicial payback. I spent 3 evenings building my counterattack, filing formal complaints with the Colorado Real Estate Commission, photographing my property from every angle, creating spreadsheets documenting her illegal fine patterns. My evidence preservation training was about to become weaponized. But Bryn wasn't finished. My security cameras captured her arriving with an entourage, her interior designer and personal trainer, spending 2 hours manufacturing evidence for non-existent violations, creating fraudulent documentation to support fraudulent fines. In my courtroom we called this conspiracy to commit fraud. Then Walt Henderson knocked on my door. "Judge, this woman's been systematically targeting people. Remember the Rodriguez family? Forced them to remove their religious garden statue. $800 in fines before they sold and moved away." My judicial instincts kicked in. What else? Single mom down the street got fined for her kids' chalk art. Rainbows and hopscotch squares. The pattern crystallized. Bryn wasn't just targeting me. She was running systematic harassment against anyone who didn't fit her suburban fantasy. Hispanic families, single mothers, elderly residents on fixed incomes, and now a widowed judge who'd previously ruled against her husband's scams. This was discrimination wrapped in HOA bureaucracy. Bryn's next move crossed into felony territory. She struck while I was downtown sentencing criminals. My security cameras captured every second of her emergency property inspection, a legal authority that existed only in her imagination. There she was in designer yoga pants, strutting through my backyard, photographing everything, pressing her face against my kitchen window. But her criminal stupidity peaked when she deliberately left my back gate wide open. The security footage showed her yanking it open, checking the latch wouldn't catch, then walking away with a satisfied smirk. When I arrived home, my worst nightmare had been realized. Gavel was missing. This 14-year-old tabby wasn't just a pet. He was Harold's final gift to me, rescued during a thunderstorm 3 years ago. The cat who'd sat on Harold's lap during chemo, purring comfort into his pain. I spent 3 days searching, my voice raw from calling his name. Then came the phone call. "Judge Blackwood, this is Dr. Martinez at Mountain View Animal Emergency. Someone brought in a cat matching your description. He's in pretty bad shape." I found Gavel barely conscious, ribs broken, severely dehydrated, traumatized. $800 in emergency surgery later, the vet delivered devastating news. "These injuries are consistent with being chased by machinery. The stress alone nearly killed him." Security footage revealed the truth. 1 hour after Bryn's illegal trespassing, her landscaping crew had arrived with industrial leaf blowers, terrorizing my cat through the open gate she'd left. They'd chased him 2 blocks before he fell into a storm drain, broken and dying. This wasn't harassment anymore. This was attempted murder of my family. I changed every lock, posted no trespassing signs, and filed criminal charges for unlawful entry and animal cruelty. Then I called Channel 7. Sarah Morgan's investigation revealed Bryn's systematic targeting of minority and elderly residents, complete with footage of her trespassing and the crew's attack on Gavel. The community response was nuclear. 5 more families came forward with horror stories. Elderly Mrs. Morgan forced to remove her late husband's memorial garden. The Johnson family fined into bankruptcy for their disabled son's wheelchair ramp. But the real game changer came from my research. Unlawful entry with intent to intimidate carried the same penalties as burglary. Plus animal cruelty charges stacked with conspiracy. Bryn's crew hadn't committed one crime. They'd created a federal RICO predicate. Bryn's desperation reached nuclear levels when she realized her crimes had backfired. So she decided to destroy my career before I could destroy hers. The complaint hit my desk via certified mail. Official Colorado Judicial Discipline Commission letterhead. Bryn alleged I abused judicial authority to intimidate law-abiding homeowners, weaponizing the legal system for personal vendettas. Within hours, I was trending as liberal judge terrorizes patriotic HOA. Comment sections exploded demanding my impeachment. For 72 hours, I watched 20 years of service get shredded by keyboard warriors who couldn't spell jurisprudence but somehow understood constitutional law better than federal judges. Then my salvation arrived in the form of Pat Donnelly. She looked like everyone's retired librarian, but what she didn't look like was a 25-year FBI veteran who'd specialized in financial crimes and had been conducting surveillance on Bryn for weeks. "Judge, I think you should see this," she said, spreading photographs across my table. "Meet Bethany Sterling of Phoenix, Arizona. 3 insurance claims in 2 years. $400,000 in payouts disappeared right before the grand jury convened." My judicial training kicked in. "She's done this before." "Textbook operation," Pat confirmed. "Target established neighborhoods, create conflicts, vanish before investigations conclude." She filed her current homeowner's application under false identity. That's federal mail fraud. The documents made my heart sing. Bryn's policy valued her $800,000 house at $2.8 million. Her application contained lies about previous claims that would make prosecutors weep. She's not harassing you because of old grudges, Pat continued. You're the distraction. While everyone's focused on HOA drama, she embezzles association funds and sets up the next fire. Pat handed me evidence showing Sterling Premium Builders filed bankruptcy last month. The HOA presidency was never about control. It was about accessing community funds. Your harassment was professional distraction. Pat's final revelation made my blood freeze. She's already filed preliminary insurance claims. Your house isn't just a target, Judge. It's scheduled to be evidence in her next insurance scam. That evening, I sat surrounded by evidence transforming my nightmare into a federal RICO case. Bank records showing $340,000 missing from HOA funds, insurance applications full of lies, a pattern of targeting minorities that screams civil rights violations. But Pat's next revelation shattered everything. Bryn Ashworth Sterling doesn't exist. The photos showed California driver's license from 2018, Rebecca Ashworth. Phoenix, Beth Sterling. Detroit from 2010, Sandra McKenzie with a federal prisoner ID number. She's a professional community destroyer, Pat explained. 4 states, 6 identities, systematic HOA infiltration followed by embezzlement and insurance fraud. She's stolen over $4 million in the past decade. How many families has she destroyed? My voice cracked. 15 confirmed. Always the same pattern. Target neighborhoods, create harassment campaigns, embezzle funds, then torch properties for insurance payouts. The next document made my blood freeze. Architectural plans for my house marked with detailed notes about electrical vulnerabilities and optimal fire acceleration patterns. She's been planning to burn your house down since day one, Pat said quietly. The harassment was misdirection. Your property's worth $180, but Harold's upgrades pushed rebuild value to $320. She's planning to claim fire spread to her property, triggering both policies for maximum payout. My hands shook. Bryn had turned our love into criminal opportunity. She's not just a criminal, Judge. She's a federal fugitive. Bryn McKenzie testified against a Detroit fraud ring in 2012, got 18 months federal time, then disappeared from witness protection in 2015. My kitchen transformed into federal war room. Pat, Walt, and attorney Rebecca Morgan sat around Harold's table like avenging angels planning biblical justice. Rebecca was a legal predator, former federal prosecutor who'd never lost a RICO case. Judge, we're not just prosecuting neighborhood harassment, she announced. We're dismantling a decade-long federal crime spree that's destroyed 15 communities and stolen over $4 million. Our 3-pronged assault: federal annihilation, state prosecution, and civil rights demolition. Federal charges first, Rebecca explained. Mail fraud across state lines carries 20-year minimums. Wire fraud adds another 20. Identity theft using witness protection programs, 10 years mandatory. RICO conspiracy for systematic community destruction. Life without parole. Pat coordinated federal agencies with retired FBI efficiency. Colorado Bureau of Investigation, Treasury Financial Crimes, FBI Interstate Fraud Task Force. They're all drooling over this case. My role was evidence preservation and victim coordination. Walt's community intelligence network became our secret weapon. Every family Bryn terrorized is documenting everything, he reported. But our most satisfying preparation was technical surveillance. Pat transformed my modest security system into federal evidence collection machinery. Every camera angle calibrated for maximum prosecutorial impact. Bryn's actively committing fresh crimes while we build the case. Every fraudulent fine, every harassment letter creates real-time evidence. By midnight, we'd constructed a legal machine designed for complete annihilation. When we're finished, Rebecca summarized, Bryn McKenzie spends her remaining years in federal maximum security. Sterling Premium gets liquidated for victim restitution. Every harassed resident receives compensation. And we establish legal precedents protecting communities nationwide. Bryn's response proved she graduated from harassment to full-blown terrorism. The attack came Tuesday afternoon while I was downtown. Perfect alibi timing she'd researched through my public court schedule. At 2:47 p.m., unmarked trucks disgorged a crew moving with professional efficiency. These weren't landscapers. They were arson specialists. Cameras recorded them creating accelerant highways around my foundation, installing unmarked propane connections, positioning dead vegetation in patterns guaranteeing fire spread. The precision was chilling. But Bryn's stupidity peaked when she arrived with Channel 7's news crew, claiming she'd received anonymous tips about dangerous fire hazards. "Community safety is my only concern," she told Sarah Morgan while standing over planted evidence of her own arson conspiracy. Fire Marshal Jake Morrison arrived for Bryn's requested inspection. Morrison was a 30-year arson veteran whose trained eye spotted planted evidence instantly. "Judge," he said quietly, "someone's setting up your house to burn. This isn't code violation. This is premeditated murder." Soil analysis revealed professionally applied accelerants. Whoever planned this knows how to kill people and make it look like electrical malfunction. But Bryn's desperation reached criminal crescendo when Morrison refused to condemn my property. Her response was captured on his body camera. A cash bribery attempt transforming misdemeanor harassment into federal corruption. "Inspector, surely we can handle this efficiently," Bryn said, sliding a thick envelope across his clipboard. Morrison's camera recorded every incriminating word and Bryn's shocked expression when he informed her that bribing public officials was federal felony punishable by 10 years minimum. Federal warrants issued within hours for Bryn, her husband, and their entire crew. Bank accounts frozen. Sterling premium placed under federal asset forfeiture. But the most beautiful irony, Bryn's planted evidence became forensic proof of premeditated arson conspiracy. The explosion at 3:17 a.m. ripped me from dreams into nightmare. I was sleeping in Walt's guest room when the blast shook windows 3 blocks away. Through the window, I watched 28 years of memories erupt into flames. Harold's house, our sanctuary, the kitchen where we'd planned retirement. All disappearing into smoke and federal evidence. Professional arsonists had turned my home into controlled demolition using techniques guaranteeing maximum destruction. But Bryn's overconfidence created the most beautiful trap in prosecution history. My security system had survived in fireproof housing, capturing every criminal second. Sterling Premium's crew entering at 2:45 a.m., followed by Bryn's husband at 3:10. The smoking gun came from insurance investigator Jennifer Park. Bryn had filed preliminary damage claims at 2:30 a.m., 47 minutes before my house was ignited. She submitted paperwork claiming her house would suffer fire damage before your house was even burning, Park explained. That's documentary evidence of premeditated murder. Then came the moment that would live in prosecution legend. Bryn actually showed up at the fire scene at 4:30 a.m. in designer athleisure and full makeup, expressing deep community concern to cameras. This tragic accident reinforces why our HOA must maintain strict safety standards, she told Channel 7. Judge Blackwood's resistance to proper inspections may have contributed to this devastating loss. What she didn't realize, FBI agents were recording every word for her murder trial. Federal marshals arrested both Ashworth Sterlings during dawn raids broadcast live nationally. Assets seized under RICO forfeiture. The charges were life sentence beautiful: attempted murder of a federal judge, first-degree arson, insurance fraud, money laundering, criminal conspiracy, and RICO violations. 7 days after my house became a crime scene, Bryn walked into my courtroom in federal custody, orange jumpsuit replacing designer athleisure. The irony felt like Harold had orchestrated it. My courtroom was packed beyond capacity. Federal marshals, FBI agents, insurance investigators, and prosecutors from 4 states filled the gallery. Most beautifully, 17 families Bryn had terrorized were present as witnesses. Judge Patricia Morrison called court to order. The people of Colorado versus Bryn McKenzie, also known as Bethany Sterling, also known as Rebecca Ashworth. The list of false identities took 30 seconds. The criminal charges took 4 minutes. Federal prosecutor Amanda Stevens stood. Your Honor, the defendant has operated under 6 false identities across 4 states while stealing over $4 million and destroying 15 communities. She attempted to murder a sitting federal judge, then appeared on television claiming the victim caused her own near-death experience. But the moment that would be replayed on legal documentaries came when Bryn addressed the court. Your Honor, Judge Blackwood has weaponized the federal government against citizens exercising legitimate HOA authority. This prosecution is judicial abuse masquerading as justice. The silence was deafening. Judge Morrison's voice carried 20 years of authority. Miss Mackenzie, you stand accused of attempting to murder a federal judge by burning down her house while she slept. You embezzled hundreds of thousands from community funds. You operated under false identities while terrorizing elderly and minority residents. You filed fraudulent insurance claims totaling millions. You are not a victim of judicial vendetta. You are a domestic terrorist who targeted a federal judge's community for systematic destruction. This court has reviewed evidence that you've destroyed 15 communities and displaced over 200 families. Bond is denied. The defendant poses extreme flight risk and danger to community safety. The gallery erupted in applause federal marshals didn't suppress. As they led Bryn away in chains, she turned toward me with pure hatred. This isn't over, Judge. You'll never prove I specifically targeted you. I stood, black robes carrying 20 years of authority. Mrs. Mackenzie, the court finds your confession that this was targeted harassment to be duly noted for sentencing purposes. Thank you for eliminating any remaining reasonable doubt. 2 years later, I stood in my rebuilt kitchen watching cardinals at Harold's Memorial Feeder while federal maximum security served Bryn Mackenzie her daily helping of justice. Life without parole in a concrete box where domestic terrorists contemplate their choices for eternity. Federal juries took 3 hours 47 minutes to convict on all counts. Apparently they needed time for lunch. Bryn received life without parole for attempted murder, plus consecutive sentences that would keep her locked up until climate change turned Colorado into beachfront property. Her husband earned 25 years. The $3.2 million in seized assets was distributed to victims across 4 states, creating the largest HOA fraud restitution in American legal history. But the real victory lived in Pinewood's transformation. Walt Henderson reigned as unanimously elected HOA president. Our reformed bylaws required community approval for fines over $50, monthly financial reports online, and mandatory mediation before legal action. Systematic targeting based on ethnicity, age, or economic status was explicitly prohibited. Colorado's Pinewood Protection Act required HOA financial transparency and established state oversight. 15 other states adopted similar legislation, protecting millions from future Bryn Mackenzies while their inspiration rotted in federal prison. The Judge Harold Blackwood Memorial Scholarship had grown beyond dreams. $750,000 raised supporting first-generation college students studying community law. Our annual Pinewood Justice Festival drew thousands celebrating community triumph. The festival combined celebration with education, helping neighborhoods recognize harassment patterns and coordinate federal investigations. 41 copycat criminals had been arrested using our model, saving thousands of families. Here's my message for anyone battling HOA nightmares. Document everything, organize your neighbors, and remember that bullies only win when good people stay silent. Drop a comment sharing your own HOA nightmare. You're not alone. And subscribe for HOA stories because next week we're destroying the tax assessor who tried stealing an entire neighborhood. That revenge was equally biblical. Together, we're building communities where justice wins and criminals lose permanently.